Hello YouTube, this is Corbin22 here, back with another 100-point squadron build for Star Wars X-Wing Miniatures. For tonight's build, I've decided to deviate from out of my comfort zone and decided to create a squadron using ships from the Scum and Villainy faction, the third faction in Star Wars X-Wing. And I looked at a couple other Scum and Villainy squadron builds on the internet, and I decided to put together this one. And consisting of an HWK 290, two Y-wing fighters, and a Z95 for added fire support. The focus behind this build is crippling the opponents and rendering them immobile. See, all of three of these ships are able to be equipped with turrets or bombs, and then of course the Z95 is mainly just there for added fire support. So it's basically the Hawk 290 is kind of the command ship. The Y-wings are going to be doing most of the heavy grunt work, and the Z95 is going to be there for added fire support in case an enemy fighter gets behind either of the three ships' tails. So with that said, let's move on to their stats. So for a 4-ship build, this is actually quite an extensive build I've got going here. Each of the bottom 3 ships here have 4 upgrades, all tailored to dealing out ion damage. And of course we have the Z95, who has an ion enabling attack of his own. So with let's start looking at the first ship we have. The first ship I've chosen is, if I can get this to focus, here we go, is Dace Bonearm. He has a pilot skill of 7. He flies the Hawk 290. He has an attack value of 1, an agility value of 2, a hull value of 4, and a shield value of 1. He can take on the focus and lock-on actions. He costs 23 squadron points. And he's able to take on an elite pilot skill, a turret upgrade, a crew member upgrade, and an illicit upgrade. His ability states, when an enemy ship at range 1 to 3 receives at least 1 ion token, if you are not stressed, you may receive 1 stress token to cause that ship to suffer 1 damage. So with Dace, this is kind of where the ions come into play. Any enemy ship that I ionize, regardless of who attacks them, if I'm not stressed, I can put on a stress token to make that ship suffer 1 damage. And they'll still be ionized. So say I attack with like an ion cannon turret. That immediately causes 1 damage and they get 1 ion token. If I'm not stressed, I can stress myself to have the enemy receive another damage on top of their ionization. So, added for extra crippling, they'll be extra crippled with that regard. So that's the ship. Let's look at their upgrades. The first upgrade I've given for his elite pilot skill, I've chosen Squad Leader. It requires to be used during the action phase, and it states choose one ship at range 1 to 2 that has a lower pilot skill than you. The chosen ship may immediately perform 1 free action. So this will apply to both of the Y-wings and the Z95 because they're all lower than 7. And if any of these ships are at range 2, I can, instead of doing a focus or lock-on, I can use Squadron Leader. Then they'll be able to get a free lock-on or a free focus action on top of the action that they take during their turn. So that's pretty handy if they need that extra little boost in their attacks. Now for his turret cannon, his turret upgrade, I've chosen an ion cannon turret, the ever so famous ion cannon turret. It has an attack value of 3. It can be used at range 1 to 2, and it states attack 1 ship even outside your firing arc. If its attack hits the target ship, the ship suffers 1 damage and receives 1 ion token, then cancel all dice results. So with the ion cannon, they have an attack value of 3. The attack value just means you have it shows you how your chances of hitting, regardless of range. So yeah, with the ion cannon turret, you have 3 chances to hit, and if any of them do hit, the enemy suffers 1 hit, and they're ionized. And of course, with Dace Bonearm's ability, you can stress out to have them receive that additional damage on top of the damage they got from ion cannon turret. So double damage plus a stress, not too bad. Now for his crew slot, I was a bit hesitant, but after looking through it a couple times, I decided to go with Greedo. Greedo is a crew slot meant only for Scum, And it states, the first time you attack each round and the first time you defend each round, the first damage card dealt is dealt face up. So with Greedo, it's a double-edged sword. For the first attack ideal, it states for the first time you attack each round and the first time you defend each round. So I'm guessing this will apply to all ships. I'm guessing this will apply to all ships. Yeah, so I'm guessing that, in other words, this will apply to Dak Bonearm only. Or when it regards to attacking and defending, it all depends on who's attacked first. So Greedo, every time you attack, the first damage count is always dealt face up. So that means with HWK's attack value being 1, if that attack hits, that card will always be a critical hit, regardless. However, it also works against Dace in the sense that if he does receive damage, hull damage, then that first card will always be a face-up critical hit. So, yeah, with Greedo, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, but if you play it right, it can pay off in the long run. Especially with the upgrades I've given these guys. Now, for his final upgrade, and the illicit upgrade, I've chosen a Hotshot Blaster. It has a attack value of 3. It can be used at range 1 to 2. And it states, discard this card to attack one ship, even a ship outside your firing arc. So with the Hotshot Blaster, it has an attack value of 3, so you get 3 dice, regardless of range. They can use to range 1 to 2, so if, say, an enemy is hit with like an attack that causes ion damage, and they have to yeah, you can use the Hotshot Blaster after they're disabled for an added punch, but the trade-off is you have to flip the card. You have to discard the card after you attack. So this is kind of like, this is kind of like the card you'd use if you need to finish someone off, so to speak. So yeah, there's the upgrades of Dace Bonearm and his Hawk 290. Let's move on to his other 2 wingmates. There's other 3 wingmates. The first of his wingmates is a Syndicate Thug. He has a pilot skill of 2. He flies the BTL Y-Wing fighter. He has an attack value of 2, an agility value of 1, a hull value of 5, and a shield value of 3, so same stats as Rebel Alliance Y-Wing. When you take on the Focus and Lock-On action, it costs 18 squadron points, and he's able to take on a turret upgrade, 2 warheads, and a salvaged astromech. It's a common pilot, so it does not have any abilities to complement it, but with the build I've given these guys, yeah, abilities are kind of rendered moot. So I should also show off the other Y-Wing here. This is the second Y-Wing. Pretty much the same stats. Let me just move that up so you can see. Same stats, same pilot skill, same upgrade, so on and so forth. They both pretty much have the same upgrade except for one thing. So I'll just show off the upgrades for one. I'll just show off the upgrades for one, and then of course when it comes to the different upgrade, I'll show those one individually. So the first upgrade that both of these guys have, for their salvage astromech, I've chosen an R4 Agromech. Hang on. There we go. I've chosen to give these guys R4 Agromechs. And they state, when attacking, after you spend the focus token, you may acquire a target lock on the defender. So that's pretty nifty. After either the Syndicate Thugs attack, if they spend focus tokens, then they can acquire a target lock immediately after they attack. Which means the next round you can get another focus token, attack, spend your target lock, and if you miss, you can spend your focus token, which will then get you another target lock. So it's kind of one of those vicious circle kind of cards. Like you get your focus, you get your focus, you spend it, you get a target lock. The next round you can get another focus, spend the target lock, spend the focus, get another target lock in the process. It's a pretty nifty card for a card that costs only 2 squadron points. Now for the second one, the first warhead slot, I've chosen Bomb Loadout. It's meant only for the Y-Wing, and it states your upgrade bar gains the bomb icon. So by attributing 1 warhead slot, it turns the Y-Wing into a true bomber. It's allowed to have 1 bomb, which is pretty nifty. It's even more especially nifty when you give each of them extra munitions. it states, when you equip this card, place one ordnance token on each equipped warhead, missile, and bomb upgrade card. When you are instructed to discard an upgrade card, you may discard one ordnance token on that card instead. So, this is, like I've stated before in a previous video, extra munitions is going to be your new best friend when it comes to dealing with ships that have more than one warhead secondary weapon slot, because at the cost of a warhead slot and only 2 squadron points, you can have up to 2 of each secondary weapon, 2 of each bomb, 2 of each missile, and 2 of each warhead. That's pretty good, all things considering. So basically that means if you miss, you get a second chance. You spend the token before you spend the actual weapon. So that's pretty good and it definitely helps you save on squadron points if you're building if you make a squadron build that's based on heavy assault. Now we get to the differences between the two Syndicate thugs. The Syndicate thug on the left here has ion bombs. Ion bombs, they state, hang on, let me get this to focus. Is it not going to focus? Why is it not focusing? Come on. Anyway, ion bombs state, when you reveal your maneuver dial, you may discard this card to drop one ion bomb token. This token detonates at the end of the activation phase. So with ion bombs, they behave similarly to seismic charges and proton bombs. The only difference being is that after you drop them, there we go, at the end of the activation phase, the token detonates, and any ship that's in range 1 of this suffers 1 damage and receives 2 ion tokens. So, yeah, this is basically this helps take advantage of Dace Bonearm's ability, in the sense that if they've taken ion damage and they're stressed, you can receive a stress to further damage them with his ability. Now, for the Y-wing the Syndicate thug on the right, I've chosen to give him a Connor net. And Connor nets, this is a special bomb that must be used as your action instead of before you move. It says, discard this card to drop 1 Connor net token. When a ship's base or maneuver template overlaps this token detonates. So this is one of those bombs that acts like an obstacle. You drop it, and then enemy ships have to overlap it or run through it in order for it to detonate. And with the Connor net, it states that enemy ships that run through it or land on it, they suffer. I think they suffer 1 damage, receive 2 ion tokens, and are unable to perform their actions. So this leaves them pretty much naked. Like it pretty much makes them behave like they're stressed. And they're also double disabled too, so again, taking advantage of Dace Bonearm's ability for extra damage. Now, for the last ship in the build, I guess you could say this is the kind of dogfighter, the all-around coverage ship. I've chosen a Binayre pilot. He has a pilot skill of 1. He flies the Incom Z95 Headhunter. He has attack value of 2, agility value of 2, a hull value of 2, and a shield value of 2. So all stats are 2. He can take on the focus and lock-on action. He costs 12 squadron points. He's able to take on a missile upgrade and an illicit upgrade. Again, he's a common pilot, so no abilities. And but he's going to be doing mostly dogfighting, so while lack of ability is kind of like, you know, a hindrance, he's going to be adding to the ion damage that the enemies can dish out, or this squadron can dish out. And the only upgrade I've given him is an Ion Pulse Missile. It has an attack value of 3 and can be used at range 2 to 3. It states, discard this card to perform this attack. If this attack hits, the defender suffers 1 damage and receives 2 Ion tokens, then cancels all dice results. So this behaves similarly to every single Ion weapon. They suffer 1 damage, regardless of their roll, if they succeed. They suffer 1 to 2 ion damage based on the weapon, and then all other dice rolls are cancelled. But like with all secondaries, it's a one-shot, and I unfortunately cannot give extra munitions to the Binayre pilot because it's a warhead slot, and the Z95 is not allowed to have a warhead. So instead, I've chosen to give him a munitions failsafe. total wrapping up the total to 100 points each, to 100 points of this build. And as I've stated earlier, it states that if you're firing a secondary that makes you excuse me, that forces you to discard the secondary with munitions failsafe. If the attack doesn't hit, you don't discard the secondary. You keep it until it actually does land a hit, which is pretty nifty for only 1 squatter point. So yeah, I had a hard time coming up with the name for this build, but with some help from my roommate, decided to call this my ankle biter build, because that's pretty much what they're doing. They're crippling the opponents, disabling them with their ion cannon turrets, proton ion bombs, counter nets, and ion pulse missiles. Each of them dealing 1 damage and 2 ion tokens, except for the ion cannon turret, which only does 1. And with Greedo, the first damage that they're always dealt will always be a face up, so that means every one of those hits is going to be a critical. And yeah, the strengths of this build, the Y-Wings have lots of defense and decent attack. The extra munitions enables the Y-Wings to have 2 ion bombs and 2 counter nets each. The R4 Agromechs allow them to keep getting lock-ons as long as they keep spending focus tokens, which saves you on an action for the next round. And also the HWK's ability allows him to get stressed in order to receive 1 damage when they're ionized. Squadron Leader allows the Syndicate Thugs to make the Syndicate Thugs and the Binayre Pod to take an additional action if they're in range of him. Ion Cannon Turret allows him to disable him at any angle. The Hotshot Blaster adds for extra crippling damage. And Greedo makes it so that every damage you deal, the first damage you deal is always face up. Of course, that also applies to you and your other ships, so yeah, bit of a double-edged sword there. The downsides of this build, low agility values for the Syndicate Thugs. They're Y-Wings, so they're bombers. They're meant to take hits, not be able to evade them. The HWK-290 has a low attack value and a low shielding value. Its agility is pretty decent, but yeah, don't count on this thing to be able to handle itself in a dogfight. Leave that for the Binayre pilot in his NA5, and even he's not exactly that impressive. I mean, he's got 2 of each, so yeah, 2 attack, 2 agility, 2 hull, and 2 shield. So keep him at a distance. Don't expect him to be able to do all of the dogfighting. You know, the trick is cooperation with this build, and mostly reliance on the ion weapons. So yeah, this is my Scum and Villainy ankle biter build. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Any constructive criticism is greatly appreciated. If you like, you may use this build in any competitive or casual play, or if you want, you can tweak it or completely revamp it to your own modification specializations. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Corbin22, signing off.